Hey my ice friends, let's make another ice sculpture. So a while back I experimented by making some colored blocks of ice by using a timer, some colored paint into the water and letting it freeze. 4 days later, I've got myself some nice colored blocks of ice. 4 blocks of ice, a magenta, a white, and 2 purple. So then I was asking, what should I carve with these? I then decided to carve a dragon, a Chinese dragon. No. How about a purple Chinese dragon? So let's shift gears here and talk about the process of carving this ice sculpture. So I'm going to start off by using my makeshift chainsaw mill to quickly mill this block, and we can get rid of this scrap. And then I'm going to carefully lay down this 300-pound block of ice, and then using my lift cart as my strong back, I'm going to lift this ice block onto my workbench at a comfortable height to start working on it. Now I'm going to use this ice pick that I made as a pencil to scribe in some lines to indicate where to cut. Then I'm going to pull out my chainsaw and start slicing onto those lines. Chainsaw is a fantastic tool to use on the ice as it cuts through it just like butter. And it makes nice straight lines as well. It's very versatile and it's the #1 go-to tool for ice carving. Well, after I cut my 2 corners over here, I'm going to preserve them on the side because I'm planning on using them later. I'm going to start by scratching the surfaces to get rid of those rough spots, make it flat. Take this thick sheet of aluminum, heat it up with an iron until it's nice and hot, and I'm going to go and place it on the surface of the ice to melt it down to get it smooth and flat. So I'm going to be doing this to both surfaces of ice here. Once done, I'm going to take the smaller piece, place it on the large piece, and move it around really quickly because once I stopped, it is tacked. Take the scrub board, scratch that bottom side, and then I'm going to carefully flip this block over to the other side because I do not want it to break and it's heavy. So repeat the process by scratching it, taking the aluminum sheet to melting the surfaces nice and flat, and then carefully putting it right back onto the big block, and we are done. And let's set it into the freezer to freeze strong. Now let's go ahead and bring out our next block of ice. How about one of these purple ones? So similar process, we're going to take it out, we're going to trim it to size. What's awesome about this chainsaw mill is that I can set it to different thicknesses, and so it makes quick work of slabbing blocks of ice. Let's go ahead and take it and we'll slice 1 slab, and how about another slab as well. Then we're going to carefully measure out and cut these slabs into smaller blocks. So basically we're taking a big block of ice and we're chopping it up into smaller blocks of ice. To know what size blocks of ice I need to cut, I create a cut list. And the way I make my cut list actually is I use Adobe Illustrator. That's my program of choice. In Adobe Illustrator, I start off by creating a gridded template to the size of my blocks of ice. And then I place my sketch on it. And because I have 1 magenta block, let's go ahead and make the mountain the magenta color and size it to the height of the block. And because the mountain is a triangle shape, we're going to take the 2 excess corners and we're going to glue them into the center of the mountain to give it a little volume like we watched at the beginning. And now we have these 2 purple blocks, right? And so we're going to make the dragon purple. So this is where we're going to figure out how we're going to take these 2 purple blocks and trim them to the shapes that we need. So here we're going to start taking some rectangles and placing them over our sketch. Let's start with the long body, working on the tail, and then let's get to the neck, and then with the remaining block we're going to cut into smaller pieces as we fit for the head, the feet, the hands, and the tail. And that is how we create our cut list. And now let's go ahead and throw all these blocks back into the freezer, and let's pull our mountain back out. We're going to get this block and we're going to prep it to start gluing all these purple blocks on. Because we got these ugly corners here, let's go ahead and cut these off, but we have to make sure that we can't really round it yet because we want to have some nice flat surfaces to get ready to glue the purple blocks on. So once I like what I have, let's go ahead and pull out our purple block, aluminum plate it, and let's place our first piece on. Something just like that. And then I'm realizing that I need to work in a frozen environment because it's getting a little too warm out there. So let's start by flipping this over and throwing it back into the freezer where it's nice and cold. And let's just repeat the process. Let's use the aluminum plate, let's get some flat surfaces, put the ice on there, use some water to help freeze it. It's getting a little cold, let's get a glove on there. Oh, we got to make a little slicey here. Aluminum plate, put a block on there, and I think we now have it. And there we go. There is our 600-pound block dragon. This is quite the complex build, but I think we have all the necessary elements in place. Okay, now the fun part can start. After a good freeze, let's pull this big boy out. Wow, this is heavy. And then let's take that chainsaw and let's just start chopping away. Let's get rid of all the, well, not dragging. And yeah, just cutting it and cutting it and cutting it. So while you're watching the progress of this dragon being carved, let's go ahead and talk about why I decided to carve a dragon. Well, I produced some spirit animal videos, and I got a handful of requests asking for a dragon. And so I was like, well, that's a pretty good idea. And so I sat in meditation, trying to think of what type of dragon should I carve. I repeatedly got a vision of a Chinese-style dragon. Well, let's get back to it. After cutting all the pieces of the not dragon out, and then I'm going to round out all those corners to get this body nice and round, to get a nice snake-like body. And there we go, and we got it all roughed out. So let's put the chainsaw away and bring out the flat chisel and start carving his head. Because the head's going to take some time, I'll start there first. So I'm using the beveled edge to get some scoop action in there to get these nice curved shape on its forehead. Let's get around the back of the head and work down to its chin and getting a little beard in there. Refine that nose, and then we're going to go ahead and get some fold lines in there. Ooh, and we're going to do a little tip carving to get that mouth. Get some eyebrows in there, and then let's bring out that angle grinder with the nice rough grit sandpaper disc. This tool is great for quickly rounding up surfaces. And then after that, let's go ahead and bring the shark bit out. This is a die grinder that has this custom-made bit designed just for ice carving. This versatile bit is fantastic. With this long body to get into some fold lines, I can use it to plunge to carve out the nostrils and use the edge to shape out the eye. Now let's bring out the Roscoe bit. This bit is amazing. It pretty much carves into the ice like as if you're drawing. This is great for carving in all those fine, sharp details. We'll use it to carve out the mouth. Let's give it a nice long mouth. Oh, don't forget its lips. We've got to get those Chinese dragon lips. And how about a third eye? Because, well, that's enlightening. And we'll use it to start doing a little rounding. We'll get into its eyebrows, shaping them out, making it look good. And how about more lines and wrinkles into the top of its head? And we got a special detail that we're going to be adding here, and there we go. Okay, let's take a break from the face and let's start doing the body. So similar process, I'm going to take the chisel and chisel it down into the shape that I want, getting all those angles in there. Then we'll grab the angle grinder and we'll start smoothing it out by removing all those chisel marks and harsh edges. And then after that, I'll use the die grinder to get into those really hard to reach places until we are done and happy. Well, then we're going to repeat the process again with his hands, but no need for me to narrate it. So instead, let's just talk about the Chinese dragon. So to start off, there are actually two types of dragons. We have the Eastern dragon, which is what we are carving, and we have the European or Western dragon. Records of the Chinese dragon date during the dynasties of China that began in 2070 BC. Yeah, that's over 4,000 years ago. Another comparison is that the Chinese dragon is depicted as an auspicious and benevolent creature, bringing prosperity and good luck, while the European dragon is seen more as the aggressive, fire-breathing beast that is told in stories. In some religions, the Chinese dragon is seen as a ruler of water and weather. The most famous are the 5 dragon kings that reside in the seas that surround China. Each dragon king governs a sea, a season, and a direction, with the 5th occupying the center. And in astrology, the Chinese dragon is one of the 12 animal signs. This year, 2024, is the year of the dragon. So, happy birthday, dragon! Alright, let's get back into it. So as I'm finishing the feet here, let's go ahead and work down to the tail. This Chinese dragon has a fan-like tail with these little wavy tendrils. I'm going to use the Roscoe bit to draw these little wavy tendrils in, and I'm going to switch to the shark bit and I'm going to cut out these little tendrils. And I'm going to be very careful because this is where it's very fragile. Okay, and after a quick clean, let's go ahead and work on the details of the body. I'm going to start by taking this Roscoe bit and I'm going to etch in some cross-hatch lines in there. These are going to be my reference points for all the scales along the body of this dragon. And then so after I do that, then I'm going to go around each little triangle shape and I'm going to round it off, getting these little fish scale like deals going on. And then after that, I'm going to grab the shark bit and I'm going to carve deeper into each little scale to make them all pop and give it some volume. And then we'll go ahead and swap back to the Roscoe bit and we'll draw in some belly lines, and then go ahead and work on some finer scales into the shoulders and hips of the dragon, and we'll finish it up with the details into the tail. Well, a lot of time has went by doing all the detail on the body, and so a lot of our facial details have melted and softened, so we have to rework all those details. Luckily, a lot of reference lines are there, so I just have to follow that. And let's go ahead and add further the details by doing some textures into its little beard. And then we'll go back to the hands and feet, and we'll start refining those toes, getting some nice sharp claws in there. And then we'll head back to the tail, clean this up, and add some little hair details into those little hair tendrils. Alright, we're getting there now. So let's go ahead and grab the flat chisel and just start chipping away at this mountain peak to get some more of the rocky texture. Chisel works great, that's all we need to do. Let's finish it off with the good rinse, and let's call it done for now and back into the freezer. With 3 out of the 4 blocks finished, we got one more to do, which is this white block. I'm going to start off by just cutting off this little sliver here because we got a couple details we want to add to the dragon. So the first thing we'll do is we'll create a pair of horns to go on top of its head. So here I'll start off by using this Dremel tool to etch in a line for the horn so I can see. Let's cut this little chunk off and we're going to bring it to the bandsaw. I think this would be great to use that. So using the bandsaw, let's go ahead and, well, just cut the contours of this horn out. The bandsaw is great for cutting curved lines on small pieces. And then after we got this cut out, I'm going to use this piece as a stencil to trace off and prepare the next piece. And then use the bandsaw to cut that, get my angles in there, and then do the profile of the horn so I get it really close in the shape. And then after I've done that to both pieces, let's go ahead and round it off. And using the chisel outside the camera view, I got them rounded up. What is a Chinese dragon without whiskers, right? So let's go ahead and do a similar process. Let's etch out the whiskers and then take it back to the bandsaw. However, we're only going to focus on this interior part of the whiskers because you see the little S shape that we have there. So let's go ahead and start by cutting that out as close as possible. I'm going to take that shark bit and I'm going to clean up on the inside of that S, and then after that I'm going to take it back to the bandsaw and fully cut out the rest of this whisker. And then once we have that, we're going to turn it to the side and let's trim it down to 2 little whisker shapes. And then we're going to place down this little rag, and this is going to prevent the ice from sliding and slipping because they're very small. Going back to the Roscoe bit, I'm going to carefully round out these whiskers and make them look good. And then it's back to the dragon. Working inside the freezer, I'm going to grab the Dremel tool and work into the details into the eyes. And then after that, let's go and grab our horns and stick those into place. And we'll squirt in some of our Arctic super glue to freeze these horns into place. And now let's repeat the process with these whiskers. You might be wondering what Arctic super glue is. It requires 2 ingredients. One is freezing temperatures and the other is H2O. And with a couple little drops, this dragon is now done. But wait, I still have this big chunk of white ice. I think I'll use this to create an atmosphere around the dragon. And I'm thinking clouds will make a great complement to go around the base of this mountain peak. So carving these clouds is a very similar process to carving the whole dragon. I don't feel like I need to repeat myself. So while our heads are in the clouds, let's talk about the spirituality aspect of this sculpture. So spirituality is the study of the non-physical realities out there. As an ice artist, it's very interesting because I'm working with a very physical material. However, my creativity is coming from a non-physical realm. So the spiritual world actually communicates us in a very, very subtle way, but it needs to bypass our logical mind and our ego. And so I'm aware of 3 main ways that spirit communicates through us. One is through physical sensations, such as gut feelings. Another is being able to hear audibly, and the other is having visualization inside the mind. So me personally, I put a lot of practice in developing my visualization, which then I learned I already had that, so I had to trust what I was seeing, and from then my skills have blossomed. And speaking of visuals, let's go ahead and set this piece up because I think we are finally done. And so let's go ahead and take out all those cloud pieces that I created and just plop them around this mountain. So let's go ahead and take this moment and bring in the spirit message that I received from Dragon. As I tuned in, I was met with this very busy dragon. The message he wanted to share is, elevate to see the higher perspective. Okay, so let's dive into that a little more. We will all encounter situations in our lives that challenge ourselves, right? It is easy to react in the moment and be clouded by negative thoughts and emotions. But like the sculpture that I created, with the dragon sitting on top of the mountain peak above the clouds, we can all learn to step back and elevate ourselves to see the higher perspective of these situations. With practice separating ourselves mentally and emotionally, asking questions such as, is this situation a beneficial learning lesson? Or how is this situation another piece to the puzzle that we call life? So when we ask these questions, we will receive an answer and then become proactive when choosing our actions. Well, that's a nice reminder. Well, I want to thank you so much for watching this video, and I do hope you enjoyed this ice sculpture. Take care.